Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a seriously fascinating piece of research from TekinGame Lab, and we're looking at the incredibly high stakes of the 2026 computing landscape. Look, we've hit a major inflection point. Picking an operating system, it's not just a technical preference anymore. It is a bold statement about your privacy boundaries, how you interact with AI, and your demand for absolute local computing power. The days of just grabbing whatever laptop is on sale at the big box store are pretty much over. You are literally making a choice about how your digital life is governed.
So, let's jump right into this ultimate battle and map out exactly what we're covering today. We're going to look at the 2026 OS contenders, step on to the gaming battlefield, break down developers and AI integration, weigh privacy versus the price, and then, finally, deliver the final verdict.
All right, part one, the 2026 OS contenders. Mac, Windows, Linux. But before we throw these three gladiators into the arena, we really need to arm you with the critical vocabulary that's driving this whole generational shift. Things have changed fast, you know?
First up, we've got Unified Memory Architecture, or UMA. This is basically the secret sauce behind Apple's macOS 16 and that absolute beast of a chip, the M5. Because Apple controls the whole stack, the hardware and the software, the CPU and GPU pull from the exact same shared memory pool. This totally eliminates the need to copy data back and forth between separate memory banks. And when you cut out that data travel time, boom, you drastically reduce power consumption and latency. It makes the Mac practically unbeatable when it comes to energy efficiency and raw data transfer speeds.
Now, jumping over to the open source side, Linux is armed with Proton. This is a genuinely miraculous piece of tech developed by Valve. Just think of it as a real-time translator. It takes highly complex DirectX calls, which are meant specifically for Windows, and instantly translate them into Vulkan so they run smoothly on Linux. And it happens so seamlessly, the end user rarely even knows the translation is happening. It is quite literally rewriting the rules of what a Linux rig can handle, tearing down that classic walled garden of PC gaming.
And then there's Microsoft. Windows 12 is leaning heavily into AI with features like Recall 2.0. This uses dedicated neural processing units, or NPUs, to actually snap periodic screenshots of your system, creating this incredibly robust searchable activity timeline. It's basically becoming the central nervous system of your PC. Super powerful for productivity, right? Like you can instantly find a document you barely glanced at hours ago. But as the research points out, having an OS constantly recording your screen, yeah, that's sparking a massive conversation about data privacy and user control.
Okay, moving on to part two, the gaming battlefield. Historically, this arena has been totally dominated by one single giant, but a surprise attack has completely flipped the script. The days of Windows being the absolute only viable gaming platform are over.
88%. That's right, thanks to SteamOS 4.0 and that Proton compatibility layer we just talked about, a staggering 88% of the massive Steam library now runs flawlessly on Linux. And here's the crazy part, some of these games actually run better on Linux via Proton than they do natively on Windows. Why? Because there's zero background bloatware eating up your system's critical resources. This is just a monumental shift in the gaming landscape, proving that open source solutions can absolutely go toe-to-toe with the proprietary giants.
But hey, Linux might be launching a massive offensive, but Windows 12 is striking back hard. With their new Game Core technology, which brings architecture optimization straight from the Xbox directly to your PC, Windows 12 is delivering up to a 20% frame rate boost in modern titles. Microsoft is leveraging its vast ecosystem, and they are fighting tooth and nail to keep that crown by squeezing every last ounce of performance out of modern hardware.
So where do the chips actually fall? Well, Windows definitely retains the crown for competitive esports and full kernel-level anti-cheat compatibility, boasting over 99% library support. But Linux has effectively conquered the handheld space with SteamOS. It's the go-to platform for on-the-go gaming now. Meanwhile, the Mac ecosystem is lagging pretty significantly behind. Even with the release of Metal 4 technology, macOS 16 only supports about 35% of the Steam library, and they continue to struggle to attract AAA developers. The bottom line here is that if you're a competitive gamer playing titles with super strict anti-cheat requirements like Valorant, Windows is still your only real option. For almost everyone else, though, the playing field has fundamentally leveled out.
All right, on to part three, developers and AI integration. This is where the raw computing philosophy truly divides our contenders, and the differences are stark. We're looking way beyond just writing code. We're looking at how these systems handle the massive computational demands of modern artificial intelligence.
And there's a huge fundamental philosophical divide between the tech giants here. Apple has completely locked down a private cloud approach.
Your AI data is processed locally, right there on the M5 chip's neural engine for maximum offline privacy. You get millisecond response times and zero cloud uploads. Your data stays with you. Microsoft, on the other hand, utilizes a hybrid AI approach to power extensive tools like Copilot+. It leverages local NPU power, sure, but it heavily relies on cloud integration. That makes it incredibly capable and constantly learning, but it is fundamentally connected to external servers.
Now, if you're a mobile or front-end developer, Apple makes an incredibly compelling argument, a staggering 24-hour battery life. I mean, uninterrupted coding without ever being tethered to a wall? Combine that with a stunning Retina display and the simple fact that you absolutely must have a Mac to develop iOS applications, and it remains the undisputed tool for mobile creators. The sheer hardware efficiency of those M-series chips makes working in a cafe or on a flight a completely frictionless experience.
But when we zoom out to back-end and AI development, Linux is the undisputed king. It offers unmatched native Docker speeds, the absolute fastest Rust compilation times, and unrestricted VRAM access, which AI researchers literally demand for training large language models. The environment is built by developers for developers. Now, Windows has improved immensely with the Windows subsystem for Linux version 3, bringing robust Linux power directly into the Windows interface. But native Linux compilation for massive, complex projects is still 15 to 30% faster. And for professionals, where time is money, that speed difference is absolutely everything.
Let's pivot to part 4, privacy versus the price. Because let's be real, the initial price tag you see at the store rarely tells the whole story of what an operating system actually costs you over its lifespan. So what does zero telemetry actually mean for you in the real world? It means Linux keeps your data strictly on your own desk. It sends absolutely nothing to outside servers without your explicit granular permission. You fully own your system. Apple kind of sits in the middle, offering minimal data collection that's heavily protected by on-device hardware like the secure enclave. But on the far right, Windows 12 takes a vastly different approach. The source data note's extensive data collection, that controversial Recall 2.0 timeline feature we discussed, mandatory Microsoft accounts for home users, and actual built-in advertisements directly in the Start menu and widgets. You are essentially trading a portion of your privacy for convenience and cutting-edge features.
And then there's the financial reality. When we examine the total cost of ownership over 3 years, Linux emerges as the ultimate economic champion at roughly $600. Why? Because the operating system itself is completely free, there are zero mandatory subscriptions, and most importantly, it is so incredibly light and efficient that it can breathe blazing fast life into old, discarded hardware. Windows sits around $1,200 due to heavier hardware requirements and the integration of hidden Microsoft 365 subscriptions. Macs carry the highest upfront cost, totaling around $1,500, though they do historically retain about 70% of their resale value, which definitely softens the blow when it's finally time to upgrade.
Which brings us to part 5, the final verdict. We've analyzed the architectures, the frame rates, the AI integrations, and the privacy policies. Now it's time to reveal the final scoring and lay out exactly which platform aligns with your specific needs for 2026.
Just look at the current state of the market on Steam as of 2026. It tells a fascinating story. You can see the sheer market domination of Windows at over 70%. For the vast majority, they are still the default choice. Yet, look at that sliver for Linux. It has achieved a historic milestone of 3.69%, efficiently surpassing macOS in the gaming sphere. This proves that the momentum is visibly shifting, driven by hardware like the Steam Deck and the continuous, rapid improvements to Proton.
So, based on rigorous testing, the final recommendations are crystal clear. You want to choose Windows 12 for seamless competitive gaming, massive backwards compatibility, and absolute enterprise dominance. Choose macOS 16 for the ultimate creative suite, mandatory mobile app development, and unparalleled on-the-go battery life. And choose Linux for absolute freedom, lightning-fast back-end development speeds, and ironclad, uncompromising privacy.
And that brings us to the end of the explainer. The 2026 computing landscape is defined entirely by trade-offs. Now that you understand the architectural compromises, the true cost of ownership, and where your data actually goes, the ball is in your court. Take a hard look at your daily workflow, reflect on your personal privacy boundaries, and factor in your budget over the next 3 years. Which operating system are you going to choose to power your future?